Again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking a little bit about Auburn football, man. It's been an exciting week for college football and just sports in general as, the nation is starting to loosen up just a little bit as college football players can start working out June the 1st. All right, let's go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. All right, so I did a video earlier this week talking about Gene Chizik and his top 5 quarterbacks coming into the 2020 season in the Southeastern Conference. Now, that kind of came to me, not necessarily a controversial thing, because nobody really listens to Gene Chizik anyway, but just looking at the top 5, let's really look at this thing, though. No more Joe Burrow, no more Jake Fromm, no more Tua Tagovailoa. These are 3 game-changing quarterbacks, especially when you talk about Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. Jake Fromm was more so of the, got coined as a game manager, so to speak, but I thought the kid was pretty accurate. At times his arm strength could be exposed, but he was definitely lethal on those intermediate routes and those long drag routes. I think Jake Fromm could be okay in the NFL. I think he's your ultimate possible, probably backup, so to speak. But I just don't see him as being like a star-studded NFL player. No more than he was a star-studded player in college. I thought he was a game manager. He did a great job, especially when he was surrounded by a lot of talent. You think about the team he had in 2017. You can't get too much more talented than that. Kind of sort of his senior year, where his last year, just didn't have the bag with the receiver sets that he had, and really didn't emerge until late season when George Pickens, the star receiver out of Alabama, started to emerge and get into a comfort zone in Power 5 competition. That connection, had it been there earlier in the season, then, things would have been a little bit different for Jake Fromm. And then you look at Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know to what, apparently NFL scouts see obviously something that I don't see or that we're not able to see in that gruesome injury. They feel that he's going to recover from it and actually have a star career in the NFL. And Joe Burrow, that pretty much speaks for itself. It is some question as to whether he's just a quarterback who benefited from a very unique system. Well, not unique system, but a system that kind of caught college football off guard. Would he have been able to attain the level of success this coming season? I'm not too sure. But either way, those 3 guys are gone. And where does Bo Nix fit? When you talk about the top quarterbacks in the SEC, you talk about the SEC Freshman of the Year last season, where does he fit? Where are the areas of improvement? Can we put a lot of stock in the fact that his offensive line, no matter how we look at it, collectively, we're just really not that good. But Bo Nix actually sometimes was his own worst enemy. And now let me tell you about this. I was like one of the most harsh critics of Gus Malzahn. We always talk about Gus, but Bo Nix, one of his most harsh critics, especially in games like Florida. And when I looked at it from a non-emotional standpoint, I realized that he didn't necessarily play a horrible game, but I think there was some points where I thought Coach Gus Malzahn could have slowed the game down a little bit for him, especially in the beginning, as those Zeniger and all those guys were just crashing down and making things very difficult. The game was just moving too fast for Bo Nix at that point. I felt like with the crowd noise in Florida, with his level of experience in a situation like that, I think, you got to put him in a position to where he's not giving the other team momentum to begin the football game. Maybe start out with a few runs. Even if you have to go 3 and out, but don't put him in positions to where he's going to make those exciting, where he's going to allow the defense to make those exciting plays that's going to have the crowd like definitely now they're in the football game. Now, it's very loud in the Swamp, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. First time Auburn's been down there in a long time. Homecoming. It was just a lot going on in that particular football game. Very exciting game. Actually, one of the more exciting games up until that last play by LaMichael Pirine, where he went, just an ungodly 70-something yards for a touchdown off of basically a busted defensive play. LaMichael Pirine is not a 70-yard running back, running for a touchdown kind of guy. But either way, when we think about Bo Nix, though, Bo Nix, I think in order for him to make it no question that he is a top-tier quarterback in the SEC, number one, he's going to have to become more vertical. Horizontal is that his eyes need to be fixed downfield. Usually, just like a person who doesn't look another person in the eye when there are trust issues, that's how it seems that Bo Nix was as a quarterback this past year. He was very horizontal a lot in his motions. So let's think about Joe Burrow as a quarterback. His eyes are downfield. Good quarterbacks, eyes downfield. Nick Marshall, eyes downfield, trusting his offensive line, trusting that everyone else is going to do their job. And that's something that I don't feel until maybe late in the season. Bo Nix did not trust the people around him. For one, he didn't trust himself. I mean, and how could he trust himself? Just a year ago, he's competing in the ASHAA in Alabama at Pinson Valley High School for a state championship. It was a different level of play. He wasn't playing against 5-star recruit cornerbacks every week in and week out. The speed of the defensive lineman was probably overwhelming for him. So he wasn't in a position to trust himself at that point. So then once you trust yourself, your trust then transfers over to the guys around you. He really didn't know the guys around him. Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, Boobie Whitlow. Just a year ago, he was playing with other guys. Now, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just trying to bring this thing into perspective as to where some of the calamities came for Bo Nix, especially at pressure points. Now, when Bo Nix was in his comfort zone, in my opinion, he looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the country. But when he was out of his element, and when Bo Nix is out of his element, this is kind of what it looks like. Bo Nix is a tempo-based quarterback. I'm not saying he's a true dual-threat quarterback, but he's a very rhythmic quarterback. And when he's on rhythm and when he's got defenses off balance, he can murder you. But when you compartmentalize Bo's talent, which is making him into a Jarrett Stidham-ish type quarterback, then that's where the problem comes. Bo Nix is not a drop-back, game-managing quarterback. He has to, when you look at his film, even in high school, he has to be in command of the football field, in control. When you restrict him of that, that's where you get the Shaun White comparisons. That's when he eases back into, oh man, that's where we get those statements like, he really didn't impress me this year. Bo Nix is the most impressive with tempo, whether it's zone read, whether it's RPO, whether it's quick slants, whether it's those wheel routes. I mean, he really is lethal in that. And that's really when you think about the type of energy and tempo that Gus Malzahn likes to call plays, Bo Nix actually fits right in. Now, to compare him to Nick Marshall, I think that's just asinine. They're two equally opposite football players when it comes to that type of football. But at the same time, just like Nick Marshall, tempo, keep guys off balance, use ingenuity. I think that's one of the differences between Bo Nix and Nick Marshall is Nick Marshall's ingenuity skills. I mean, he was like a point guard playing football. Just imagine Allen Iverson playing football. That's what you get out of Bo Nix. I mean, that's what you get out of Nick Marshall. Just imagine a guy who really defied the laws of nature on the football field. Nick Marshall definitely did that. And that's why we miss Nick Marshall. And Nick Marshall was the situation where, we just kind of got over Cam Newton and left us in shock and awe. But we really didn't realize really how good Nick Marshall was, honestly, until he left. Now, some of us appreciated him while he was there, but just like in life, we don't give flowers to we give flowers to the dead. We don't give flowers to the living, and that's a similar situation with Nick Marshall. I'm not sure if we appreciated him to the extent that we probably should have while he was there, because we didn't know what we just didn't realize what a gift of a quarterback we had at the time. Big shout out to Nick Marshall, War Eagle. So because really a lot of great players, they emulate their game based on another good player. So who is a guy that you think that Nick Marshall could emulate his game based on? I think with his diverse skill set, I think he needs to look at a couple players. One, he needs to look at take a hard look at Joe Burrow. He needs to take a hard look at Joe Burrow and how Joe Burrow has the trust and the leader. See, people talk about poise in Bo Nix, and poise is all and good, but now that poise needs to translate over into genuine leadership. And what I mean by genuine leadership is the type of leadership that Joe Burrow brings to the table. Joe Burrow brings the trust of not only himself, but the guys around him to the table. And that's something that I think Bo Nix really needs to tap into. And that's the same thing that Nick Marshall did. Nick Marshall trusted the guys around him. Cam Newton trusted the guys around him. And what are the three denominations of those three guys? They had a hell of a lot of experience. They were drafted by Power 5 teams. Then they either transferred or went the JUCO route. So they had a wealth of experience. They saw a lot. They had a huge sample size. And being a leader, you have to have experience. Bo Nix just didn't have that experience yet. But now that he does, let's see what year 2 brings for Bo Nix. But trust of your team and of yourself is going to be a huge deal for Bo Nix. And number 2, scrambling with a lot of education. And what I mean by educated scrambling is make your scrambling count. When Joe Burrow starts to scramble, when Cam Newton starts to scramble, and when Bo Nix starts to scramble, you know that it's going to amount to something. It's not going to turn into a sack. It's not going to turn into an interception. It's not going to turn into throwing the ball into the ground. You are about to pay. He becomes a weapon. Bo Nix has to become a weapon when he scrambles. And last but not least, 2 receivers. He's got to have 2. He's got to have 2 good receivers that he can rely on. This year, mainly Seth Williams because of the injury of Anthony Schwartz. Not sure why Zach Farrar wasn't a factor this year. I thought the kid was, good size, seemed to be pretty decent talent. But he's got to have 2. And with the recruiting classes that are starting to overlap at Auburn, he should have more than enough weapons at the wide receiver position to do really well this year. And last but not least, Auburn's got to help Bo Nix out. Auburn's got to get back to having a solid running game. I think with Tank Bigsby, Tank Bigsby, Sean Shivers, and DJ Williams. I was actually looking at some highlights on DJ last night, and this guy's good. Tank Bigsby is not just going to come in and just swoop the job away. Plus, Auburn needs to get away from that feature back stuff anyway. Start getting some Sony Michel and Nick Chubb stuff going on. All right. Well, that's my time here for now. Vernon Speaks Sports to Auburn, episode number 128. Been a great week. I definitely am enjoying the surge in recruiting for the Tigers. Let's see, though, if Auburn is going to be able to hang on to Lee Hunter. He's a very coveted guy being recruited by a lot of folks in the Power 5, including Oregon, Alabama, the regulars, LSU, of course. But we got Rodney Garner, one of the best defensive line coaches in America. So we'll see how that retention lies. Great to be an Auburn Tiger. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's great to be on the plains. War Eagle.